call it Hawaii coffee, but you cannot call it Kona coffee. Okay. So this is the laws that are in place to help grade coffee. A little bit of marketing. Anybody here likes to eat steak? Okay, what's the best grade of steak? No, not cut, but I heard the answer, prime. Prime is not the best you can get, and then what? Choice, and then select, and blah, 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 this and that. I just want to point out, prime, which is, well, if you were to follow the logic, this should be number 2, but they don't want to tell you you're buying number 2, you're buying prime. Perfectly legitimate. It's one of the weird things about the US grading system. Depending on the product you're trying to buy, you got to understand what the words mean. In the case of steak, this means number 1. In the case of coffee, it means number 2. And number 2 is still not all that great. Okay? There's some companies that are proud of saying, we sell only prime. I don't know if they understand what they're saying, but we sell only prime coffee. Okay, if you see them, don't say that I said that. What was my point? So by splitting it up this way, so if that price was $25 that James was saying, this might be 20, 28, 30, and then so on, and so forth. As a side comment, if you have extra fancy coffee, how would you let your customer know that I'm selling extra fancy coffee? You could label it, but if it's a coffee connoisseur, somebody that knows coffee, what they're going to look for then if they know it's extra fancy? They're going to look for that big bean and better look perfect. So that means in your packaging, somehow if you can show them, if you can show them that, it might be a good thing. Now, problem with that is once light and air gets to coffee, you hurt the quality, so there's a trade-off. But just as a comment, I've seen, I mentioned, there was a company that's saying, we sell only prime. There was some that were selling pea berry and extra fancy in the foil bag. So it's a little bit difficult. You almost got to take their word for it. But they also ground it for you. So some interesting things. If you're going to do some of this marketing and this and that and the other thing, don't undo your work by doing stuff like that. You're trying to sell prime where it's that whole coffee that's the important thing, and you grind it up. Nobody knows.
Is that before or was it?
It's graded in the green stage like this. Yeah. I'm not going to pick on the big company. Nah, I won't pick on the big company. Starbucks. I don't know what Starbucks uses. Okay. I truly don't. But I suspect. Yeah. Well, anybody here coffee drinker? How do you drink your coffee? Black? Anybody like cream and sugar in it? You're a Starbucks fan. Well, if Kona, one of the things about Kona coffee is supposed to be it has a superior taste, and if you sniff it, it has a really that's for sure. It has really nice aroma compared to many other coffees. But it's supposed to have certain things about taste and acidity and this and that and the other thing. Certain companies, not necessarily for Kona, but certain companies, I believe, will buy coffee. And, I got to back up a little bit. One of the things about coffee when you're talking about the taste and the odor and smell and this and that is the more you roast it, strange thing about fire, you burn away all these goodies. Okay, so after a while, the smell goes, and some of the flavors go, and you basically end up with something with some kind of strong essence of coffee flavor. Okay. So there's some companies that, hey, this is the cheap stuff. It's still drinkable, nothing wrong with it. It just not the right size or whatever it is, it's still drinkable. They'll take the stuff, you roast the heck out of it, if there's any defect. How do you drink your stuff at Starbucks? Cream and sugar. So if you're drinking basically cream and sugar with a little coffee taste, and you pay $5 or $10 for the privilege. Anyway, it's a side story. Sorry, I like to get into side
Starbucks
stories.
is more like branding or labeling. It's a culture. It's not really the coffee.
You might not be buying coffee, you're buying something else. Yeah.
You know,
So I shouldn't pick on Starbucks. I'm not saying Starbucks does it, but it could be any one of these folks that picked up on that idea.
On the right side.
Yes.
Where they separated out the sizes and the shape is actually the same coffee.
Same coffee, it's just that it's not the right size, or sometimes there's a lot of defects in it. By defects, I'll bring up another thing. If you've got a bug hole as an example, it's considered a defect. You're only allowed so much defects in those. So if there's a bug hole, or going through all this machinery is tough on whatever it is we're trying to eat. It'll cause some chips every now and then, or gouge it out or something. Those are defects, and those would tend to send things down. First heard of the CBB, the coffee borer beetle? So coffee borer beetle goes in and makes a little hole in the coffee bean. Inspector looks at that, that's considered a defect. Because of that, I understand now it's almost impossible to get Kona coffee in this range. They have the size, but you got a whole bunch of little bug holes. So unless somebody sits there and they don't have machines yet that can automatically dig out all the bug holes. So unless somebody goes through and sifts out all the bug holes, you don't have this kind of coffee anymore right now. We're doing some work. We're hoping to change that again, but
the Ka'u and Punas.
Ka'u, unfortunately, Ka'u also got the CBB. Puna, not yet. Kohala got it. It's heading toward Hamakua. Question?
I think it's interesting with the tea industry here because we don't really have that kind of grading system that the coffee industry has. So is there, there's that complicated
There's actually,
develop the grading system?
in the U.S., yes, but foreign countries they do have their own grading systems. Yeah, not yet. Yeah. So for better or for worse, people are, taking advantage perhaps, or not taking advantage. That's just what the rules of the game are, and they're using it. Yeah, market. So, the flip side, take off your grower hat, put on your consumer hat. Be aware that there is some of this kind of stuff going on. And if you're happy with it, that's okay. You're willing to pay the money anyway. That's okay, because there's might be something else you're buying it for.
They're not ground coffee. They're the whole bean.
When it's
All parts of it.
so when you take it from that parchment and you get to this green bean stage, then it goes through all this processing. Now there are some other rules and regulations involved. For example, if you are a local grower of Kona coffee and you're only going to sell to people in Hawaii, you don't have to grade it. You can just roast it, put it in a bag, 100% Kona coffee. If you're selling it in Hawaii. Yeah. So, but you got to be aware of what all these rules and regulations and little loopholes are.
Is there a particular coffee plant that's Kona, or is that just where it's grown?
It's mostly where it's grown. It should be, or traditionally has been, what they call the Kona typica. There's a Guatemalan variety and some other variety.
All over the world.
Yeah.
You can take those and grow them. Same.
Yeah. So going back to that discussion about tomatoes, the variety, going back as far as the variety. Now in Kona it's a little bit difficult because some of these trees are 100, 110 years old. Ka'u is a little bit different. They're starting out. So if you go to Ka'u, you can get a Bourbon or some of these other different varieties, and it's like wine.
Yeah.
Whole bunch might be in your head, and a whole bunch, if you have the taste buds that can taste it. So if it were tomatoes, like I said, it's useless for me. But you know, they can you can taste the difference in different varieties. So, you know, it's a point well taken. Mocha, there's some folks trying to grow mocha over on one of the other islands, and yeah, it's a great coffee. Of course, if anything, you roast the heck out of it, you put enough cream and sugar, it doesn't matter. Okay, this fellow here is one of the Kona coffee. It's actually in your green book. I think the picture came out of there. That's the company. I just want to give you some example of how now these folks have taken some of these different ideas of how to add value. One thing that they do, if you're a coffee grower, a big part of the expense is what do you do with the coffee after you harvest it. It costs money to have a mill and to do the marketing and this and that. So what this company does, one of the things they do is, and here is some of all the pictures of the different growers that they work with, they will do some of the processing of the coffee for you. And if you go with the, you know, either you can drive in by yourself or take a tour, you'll see how they do that. You know, you can actually go to where the cherries go in, and then it goes to the mill and that sorting machine I show. You can see how all these things work. Eventually, you run into this woman. I think she's still there. She roasts the coffee. It's kind of like bread. You know, you ever walked into a supermarket? What's the first thing you smell a lot of times? It's fresh baked bread. And if you look for the bakery, it doesn't exist. Many supermarkets. Coffee is kind of like that. It's one of these aromas, the roasting coffee. Why it's next to the gift shop, I never quite figured out. But you end up watching the woman then bag the coffee and in their little gift shop.
Wait, is that all their coffee, or is he like a broker?
No, this is, well, my understanding is the coffee they're selling, and they have some other things like mac nuts and stuff, but the coffee here is all their coffee. Okay. They had something like 20 or 30 acres, which for coffee farm in Kona is really good sized. If you look at this shop, it's about, I don't know, maybe a third of the size of this room. On a good day, half the size of the room. There's no way this shop sells all that coffee. But they don't sell to any other outlet. Everything is either this shop or they sell it through the mail order and internet. One day when you got nothing else to do, try and Google Kona coffee or whatever the search engine is nowadays. Last time I tried, you got something like 25 million hits. Okay. I don't know if they're all selling coffee, but if I'm looking for Kona coffee, I'm a former visitor, say, and I want to buy Kona coffee. I'm trying to find someplace to buy them, and I Google. Of the 25 million, why is it I come back to this company here?
Your web guy.
My web guy sent me here?
Is doing your website, right?
No, it's not that great a website.
I mean, you got
You could, but no, that's not what they do. I'm sorry, I don't know if I made myself clear. So you get 20, 30 acres, they sell a little bit here. Most of the rest of the coffee is to the internet or mail order. And yeah, but if you were to look at, if you were just a buyer and Google Kona coffee and 200, 25 million, yeah, maybe somebody will make yours jump to the top. That's not what they're doing. What they're selling to is the folks that came to visit that farm. So the tour I was trying to describe a little bit. Every day a cruise ship ends up in Kailua Harbor. A big chunk of folks go up to here because, hey, I'm in Hawaii. I want to see what Kona coffee is like. I get to see how I process. Free advertising, free tour, free sample at the end. Oh, and maybe I buy. I don't want to do the suitcase export thing. I'll buy when I go back home. But it's because they took this tour that of the 25 million other people, they come back to this one. There's enough, out of the 10,000 people that visit in a typical week. I don't know. I'm making up the numbers. You just need a small percentage that comes back and buy. So going back to what James was talking about earlier, you want a repeat buyer again too, yeah? But how they keep getting new buyers is by the people that come on the tour. Not everyone's going to buy,
But there's going to be enough that come back, pick up the card, do the mail order thing, and they fill the coffee line. They might, that what I described is the basic model, and yeah, if they're smart, they figure out how different ways to expand that. Yeah. This fellow, business, yeah. I said when I checked with them a while back, they had actually sold to the employees. The employees bought out the company. I don't know what happened since that, but yeah. Interesting family, interesting folks that we do there. So anyway, that's sort of one way how they've gone ahead and done their marketing. Oh, this is, yeah, if you don't recognize this, this is what tea looks like. And one of the problems with tea is you get junk labor. But in the case of tea, wow, 10 years ago, staying with this too long. That's what tea looks like when you have it. You stand out in the hot sun. You gotta pick those. So what you do is through this changing the form, you kind of, you do a little bit and it comes like that, and you do a little bit more and it gets a little darker, and eventually you're going to end up with something that looks like this, which is what a lot of people will buy. Or a lot of people will buy, ready brewed stuff. This isn't quite tea, but maybe somebody will mix it for you and put it in a bottle. How much will tea bottles cost nowadays? Sugar water with a little bit of color added. Anyway, I digress again. This is what tea ends up with. If you into tea and you talk about white tea, there's several different types of white tea. One type of white tea is like this because it looks white. What you're seeing is the very tip of the plant and the little hairs is what you think is white. So you see some of the white stuff up there, that's the tip of the plant and the little hairs. So imagine somebody went through and plucked out all those little ones to make that type. Different ways that you can try and add value to form. Now, what I mentioned a bit earlier, depending on how I went through that process, we could end up with white tea, we could end up with green tea, we could end up with oolong tea, we could end up with black tea, blah, blah, blah. So different ways for this particular plant, we add value very much by changing the form. Same plant. Now, it turns out that certain varieties are better for certain ones, but any one of those, you start with the same plant, you can get the tea. If you want to have certain ones, if you want a black tea, you might want to get certain varieties because they make better black tea. And Hawaii grown tea. It's going to be, I predict it'll be at least as big as the country. And one day, if you want, we'll put on your page. One of the things we have on the evaluation form is at the very bottom, things that you might want to have a class in. And one of the things, if you want to hear about tea, you can do that. Okay. Anyway, moving on. So that was some background on how one might add value to form. Let's talk about number 2, adding value to location. Today was a hot day. Very hot day. And assuming a lot of you were out in the sun and came back and you went into the fridge and grabbed the cold one. When did you get the most satisfaction, or when would you have wanted to pay the most for that nice cold one? Right there. That first sip was the one that you'd be willing to pay the most for. Yeah. And the second one is still good and all that. But being able to go into my fridge and get a nice cold one, that was good. What if, though, I was at home and I was too hot and tired, so I was sitting in the living room and I asked my wife, "Oh, please, honey, please, I love you all that. Please give me a cold one. Some penny. That would be sure, penny. I don't know, if we're you, how much would you be willing to pay for someone to go and get the cold one from you? Walk across the room, or you could go walk across the room yourself and get it from the here. So not, I gotta pay somebody or I gotta get up, so not quite as good as when I was able to just reach in and take that first trip. It lost a little bit of value because the location was a little further away. What if I walked across the room though and I look in the fridge and, there's nothing there. I gotta go drive down to that store. Unless I wanted a nice cold one. So I had to get in my car and I drive down to the store to pick up a cold one. Not as valuable because I had to spend some time, and if I had to pay somebody to do that, say, okay, I'm willing to pay some, but it's not as valuable to me anymore. But what if I just go down to the store and we say, it's such a hot day today, we sold out. You got to drive over to Kona. So forget it. At that stage, I'll go drink water. I'll find an alternative. But what I'm trying to say is that if you look at where something is located, it can have a lot to do with value. When it's right there, it's most valuable to me. A little bit less valuable across the room. Definitely less valuable when I have to go to the store. When it's across the island, there is no value, and I'm not willing to pay for that at all. So having product at a desired place is one way one can add value. Related somewhat, or very much related to that, is the idea of providing assortment. And I'll try to talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit now. Get a better example in that side. Some marketing functions or what is involved in getting this. Well, transportation is obvious one. Get somebody to haul the stuff over from Hilo, from Kona to here. Aggregation. Bringing stuff together. Aggregation. If we are trying to add value by shipping our stuff, say, to Los Angeles, and you were to take your carton of tomatoes to the airline, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for that. You buy a first class ticket and haul it yourself. But if we were all get together and put all our tomatoes into one of these containers, we'll get a better price because we have the economies of scale working for us. So aggregation is somebody bringing all the stuff together so you can do things like getting a better rate. This aggregation is opposite. Once that container reaches LA or wherever it is, somebody got to go and split it up to all the different buyers again. And that's what this aggregation is talking about. And this thing called assortment again. So, typically, at least in Hawaii, the ship, the airplane, the truck is ways that we get transportation. Other places have the train as well. We have a nice one too. This is kind of not only mail, but the package service, whether it's FedEx or UPS or what have you, are very good way to add value from location tied to the internet. The value from location. These guys again. And the way they add value through location is they get the papayas from Hawaii, and whoever you are as a buyer, we will deliver to your doorstep in June 2 pounds of papayas, and in July, whatever it was, we took a bunch of cherries, and in whichever package you choose. You choose the monthly package, we'll do that for you every month. You choose the quarterly package, we'll do that for you once every 3 months. Blah, blah, blah. They add value by doing location. Now with FedEx and this and that, growers can do them themselves, so that's why these guys are having a lot of trouble. I hope your supermarket looks like that. Let's say you're going to have a potluck party this weekend and your job is to make a salad. Okay, you're going to make a nice salad. Imagine though that you had to go, okay, salad. First thing is lettuce. You got to go to Imagine you have to go to the farm to find nice lettuce. Okay, what else shall we add with that? Tomatoes would be good. Oh, okay, most people like tomatoes. I will add tomatoes. But, I went to someplace down Hamakua to buy the lettuce. I gotta go cross town down to Oipanaga Way to find my tomato grower. What else do I add in there? Cucumbers. Shoot, I thought about that earlier. I gotta go back Hamakua pick up cucumbers. What else? Might make nice salad. Bell peppers. I gotta go Palmano for the bell peppers. What is that? Beet? Somebody said beet? After a while, forget it. We get enough for the salad. We're not going to buy anything more. I'm sorry driving around. So much easier to go into the supermarket with everything here. Look at assortment. So this idea of providing assortment. James was talking about you like that Alangal and Kapir line. So nice that one person brought those together. So if you were specializing in whatever dish that I'm guessing was a Thai family that was growing these products. So if you're growing, I don't know, lomi salmon, you specialize in lomi salmon. So they can come to your shop and you got the tomatoes, I got the sweet onion, Martha throwing poi on the side. I can buy everything right there. How easy to make a sale? Yeah. And since you're there, why not buy the poi? You ever walk into the supermarket and I'm trying to think of, I don't know how this particular, I'm trying to think of KTA. KTA got this humongous poke section. But when you go to the poke section, the KTA they're doing something wrong there. You go to a lot of poke sections. Well, let me back up on that. A lot of people in KTA, it's a bad example. Now that I think about it, you go to a lot of supermarkets, and if you want to buy milk, where's the milk located? Usually in the back of the supermarket. So you got to go through, and you cannot go straight to the milk. You got to go lady. Kind of like assortment in that way. What if you wanted to buy? I mentioned the bread. Why is it when you walk into the supermarket, you get that whiff of bread? Something about bread makes most people hungry. And the worst time to go shopping is when you get hungry. So when you get, they prime you up, and then you go, okay. I'm going to the vegetable section because I'm gonna make my salad, and all this stuff is here. Good chance there's gonna be salad dressing right there. You pick it up. Croutons, all these other extras. You go to the poke section, that's why I'm saying something funny with KTA. You go to a lot of other stores, poke section, what's right next door to the poke? The poi. A poi is right there for KTA, but what else would be there a lot of times? The beer. You go to the chips section. A lot of times you gotta walk past the beer one way and the soda the other way. And what else is there? The salsa, the bean dip. They're trying to make it easy for you, but providing this assortment, they're adding value from location. Okay. Oh, I'm going to see if I got, we've got to keep going, move faster here. Adding value to time. This is supposed to be a Christmas tree. Looks like a Christmas tree. I'm guessing over here it's kind of like Honolulu. How much was Christmas trees this past year? Nobody buys Christmas trees anymore? Another tradition gone down the tube. $55 this past year. Okay, was it good or bad? Good price? Fantastic price? Cheap? Oh, fantastic cheap. Okay. She works for the two companies. Don't listen to her. No. But one thing we noticed, at least in Honolulu, is a very curious thing. When you don't have kids, you don't keep track anymore. My kids are gone